U.S. intelligence agency skullduggery, this redounds to make conspiracy theory more credible because 9/11 was a huge boon to the neoconservative project. There's no way to argue it wasn't. The only thing to do is just to try to work from the evidence rather than from the top down. And remember, one very important thing to remember when you're trying to evaluate these claims is, well, how would things be different if 9/11 was an inside job? Would it have changed anything else about the political reality that we face? And it really doesn't. It wouldn't change a damn thing. So it's one of those things where it's a literal distraction because it's describing something that's not central to the processing of history and of the human fate. Okay, so with Bush in the White House and the conservatives riding tall in the saddle, conspiracy theory in the aughts was largely left-wing, broadly, but not even specifically left-wing, trutherism. That was the locus of left-wing conspiracy thinking. Was all about 9/11, and the conservatives have nothing to complain about. The world made sense to them. They were finally winning. They were going to remake the world in their image. There was going to be a fucking California pizza kitchen in every country in the world, and then it all went to shit. The Bush administration lost all credibility, both here and abroad, and Barack Obama was elected president. And Barack Obama's election was generally a traumatic moment for the American lumpen reactionary. Just a bolt from the blue of nightmare. Their worst thoughts about what could have happened after Bush were exceeded. And I'd say as bad as it would have been if Hillary had won, they kind of knew what it was like to hate Hillary. It was a long-standing hate. It was the parameters were well established. This hate for Obama just came out of the blue, and it was fucking unbridled. And it just unleashed this absolute frenzy, which was channeled by a bunch of different stuff, from the Tea Party to cultural hucksters like Glenn Beck, who became the Alex Jones of movement conservatism, as opposed to the Alex Jones of sort of vague white working class people who watch a lot of YouTube. And Glenn Beck, on his show during the Obama years, where he would put out his massively convoluted web of actors, all of whom were conspiring behind the scenes to turn Barack Obama's presidency into some 1,000-year progressive Reich, involving all of these little-known thinkers like Saul Alinsky and Francis Fox Piven, enacting this decades-long plan. He is just basically opening up your grandpa's head and shining a light in there and just showing you what's going on. Like, this is what your dad's brain looks like now. That is what Glenn Beck was doing. And so people loved watching it. It was absolutely riveting. And in this new era, this new right-wing era of conspiracy thinking, if it's not Obama directly, who's behind Obama? And the answer is not the Jews. I guess this is what you would call a cultural progress. It's not the Jews. It's a Jew, a specific Jew, George Soros, who embodies all of the classic tropes of the alien scheming Jew who wants to destroy the world just to destroy it, who's the damn Joker. And that's always what it is, but it used to be Jews as a race. Now it's one guy, one specific Jew. So now you can't call him an anti-Semite because it's all been concentrated into one dude, George Soros, who wants to destroy the world for no reason, just like the Jews would have wanted to. A guy who is a billionaire fucking currency trader who is incredibly wealthy and has only pursued wealth his whole life. No, he's going to blow up the world for no fucking reason, just because he's not one of us. So that's what Soros is. They've perfected the anti-Semitism by channeling it into just one guy. And that really is the difference when you talk about, like, what's the difference between the anti-Semitic and the non-anti-Semitic right? Is it Soros or all the Jews? That's the only difference. All right, so all of this is leading to the current moment in which the spread of social media has proliferated conspiracy theory thinking in a way that is almost unprecedented. It's like it aerosolized conspiracy theory. Put it in the fucking drinking water, in the goddamn air ducts. We're all exposed to it every moment of the day. It settles on us like fucking radioactive dust. That is what conspiracy theory is, with the supercharger of social media. So now we're in a post-Iraq War, post-2008 collapse world where all institutional faith is gone. No one has any trust of institutions, public or private. Nobody believes the media. Nobody believes any politician except the one that they have a personal emotional connection to, and says the words that trigger their limbic systems. So we are now more primed than ever for funneling the world into a conspiratorial mindset. And that is what we have been doing like gangbusters. We know that the libs have, of course, grasped Russiagate as their shibboleth. That is their explanation. Putin replaces Soros for them as this figure. It makes a little bit more sense because in that one, Putin at least wants to take over the world, to rule it. He doesn't just want to destroy it. So points for coherence on that. But other than that, it's the same gibberish. More interestingly, though, we have on the right Pizzagate and QAnon, which is an amazing example of boomers finding the internet. This is taking the blueprints that they saw on the Glenn Beck's chalkboard and using them as coordinates to pilot a journey onto the information superhighway that we'll never forget. And so there's two things about social media that hyper-viralize conspiracy theory. One is the decentralized nature of the information and the way that it flattens all sources of information, so that especially for a boomer who grew up getting the authoritative news, capital N, from Walter Cronkite, he goes to patriotgun.eagle. He gives it the same mental weight. So that is one element of social media that spreads conspiracies very well. The other is gamification, because social media isn't just watching a video, isn't just looking at a meme. It's posting a meme. It's posting comments. It's writing on Twitter. It's doing hashtags. It's harassing the bad guys and cheering on the good guys. It's engaging. And by engaging in it, you are able to make it a game. You're trying to rack up points, faves, retweets, all that. But also, you are making the game as it happens. You are interacting with it. You are the investigator. It's not just watching Glenn Beck. You're up there with Glenn Beck, writing stuff on the chalkboard with him. You've turned it into a game. You can find the evidence. You can look at the clues. You can put the clues together. And you now know. It's like watching Blue's Clues, where you're yelling at them. No, it's the rake. And then they'll go, yay. And it's like, I'm helping. That's what you get to do. So those are big components of why QAnon and Pizzagate are so popular. But the other big ones are, one, the fantasies of the extreme depravity of your enemies in it. They're not even just worshiping Satan. They're actually eating babies' brains while they're alive. Some of this stuff about adrenochrome and all that shit, the theory is the kid has to be alive when you're eating it so you get all of his life power. When your enemies are like that, you are justified in doing anything to them. And so this is psychologically for these super reactionary right-wing people. They're giving themselves justification for what they want to do to them. They're justifying their authoritarianism. Remember, QAnon is just a fantasy of a coup. All of it. The whole point is we're counting down the day until they just arrest all of the political opposition in government and in civil society, which is a fucking coup by any definition. But they have justified it because, no, they're eating baby brains. I'd say, but the most crucial and interesting thing that it represents, and I think, frankly, seeing how authoritarian they are, this is a little bit comforting, is that this model of political engagement is defined, as all of these conspiracy theory mindsets are, by inaction, by powerlessness. You are, even though you're engaging with the game, you're engaging with the evidence, maybe, if you're a QAnon person, you are, at the end of the day, spectating. You are watching a thing unfold. You are watching the plan of the white hats and the good Trump people play out. And you can yell at the screen like you're watching Blue's Clues, and that makes it more fun, but it is essentially a spectacle. And that is the end point of American political engagement, is to realize the degree to which politics is fundamentally a spectacle in which the average person has no ability to interact in a meaningful way. There's no input that they can put into this thing that's going to get anything resembling their will coming out of it. The voting won't work. Mobilizing won't work. They're just the sense people have that there is no changing this. There's no shaping any of this. we are absolutely in the thrall of this spectacle, then we might as well fucking enjoy it instead of swimming against the current and trying to fantasize that we're even pushing anything in any direction. We can just watch it and we can root for the white hats. The unsealed. Oh, they're gonna unseal the indictments. It's happening. Oh my God, we're gonna do it. There's no difference. That is the end point. That's the final disillusioned end point of participation in American politics. Is realizing its uselessness and embracing your own position as a totally powerless spectator who just wants a better show. You want to see an example of the powerlessness at the heart of QAnon? Take the case of Vincent Fuchsia. So Vincent Fuchsia was this guy who was just going to Trump rallies in a Santa costume. And one day some Q guy took a picture of him and I guess using some seeing stones and a hat or something decided that he actually looked like JFK Jr. And soon, totally outside of the prompting of Q himself, all by their own, these little detectives create a narrative where John F. Kennedy Jr. faked his own death in a plane crash in the late 90s in order to go into hiding and investigate his father's assassination, which he eventually was able to connect to George H.W. Bush. And then eventually he worked behind the scenes to help elect Trump, is now working behind the scenes with Trump to defeat the deep state. It's just an amazing tale. I mean, you just sit back and you're like, holy crap. And they even created a whole theory where George Magazine was originally supposed to help launch Trump to prominence, and that there's a quote in one of the editions where John F. Kennedy Jr. is saying how great a president Trump would be, and that all people would understand and agree that he was the leader that they were seeking. Just, John the Baptist shit. And so now their story is every time they see this dope show up at one of these rallies, they're like, oh my God, it's him. And just think about that for a second. So this is their ideal narrative, right? This is an action hero narrative where this guy goes undercover, man in the iron mask, like fucking gets plastic surgery, skulks around to get revenge for his father's death against these deep state sickos. So what does he do when the trap is about to be sprung? He just starts going to the fucking Trump rallies. This guy who went through all of that trouble to do this thing, this multi-decade plan, and now part of it is to, at the 0 hour, reveal himself in public and just hang out at the exact same fucking suburban gymnasium with the same room full of dentists and auto body dealership owners, and listen to this guy talk about how he almost had sex with Courtney Thorne-Smith at an ESPN zone. And that's the same thing you're doing. He's just watching the same thing you're watching. Even at this vital moment, your key guy is not doing anything. He's just watching the president do something. But like I said, that is all related to the essential powerlessness at the heart of conspiracy thinking. That's one of my two big theses about conspiracy thinking is that, one, it's about being powerless and then expressing a political imagination around that powerlessness as its basic premise. But the opposite of conspiracy theory thinking is class solidarity, class consciousness, thinking in class terms that clarifies all the mysticism and makes the array of forces much more coherent, and it just makes everything make sense. It really is the glasses from They Live. And this gets to a reason why I don't think the left can be ever really successfully harness the energy of conspiracy theory. I've had people tell me, look, if conspiracy theory is a way people understand language in this atomized America, and most Americans are atomized, wouldn't it be easier to try to get to them through the conspiracy theory than by trying to create a class consciousness that's not there? It's the easy way. Just go around the corner. Just be like, hey, you like conspiracy theories? Well, what about the conspiracy called capitalism? And I see the lure of that, but I think it's a dead end because conspiracy theory is the antithesis of consciousness. What conspiracy theory is, it is what fills the space left where America's class consciousness should be. The degree to which class consciousness is missing in America, the hole, the sucking void is filled with conspiracy theory.